Today's video is sponsored by Luminar. Every few months in the camera world, we have this influx of shiny, 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 new and expensive. So I thought it was about time I got back to basics and recommended you an absolute secret bargain of a camera. This is the Lumix LF1. Look at the size of it. It's so cute, and it's got an incredible zoom lens, and let me tell you all about it. This camera is very special for a few reasons and quite unique. One is it crams in a tiny EVF into this tiny body, which is only 192 grams in weight. And it's truly pocketable. You know, like on here, we have the debate of where is the line when it comes to pocketability. You can get that in a pocket. Even a tiny little fake girly pocket. It's very tiny indeed. I took this to a festival recently and got some nice everyday sort of photographs, some photographs of the bands. It was just great. It really impressed me. The only downside is it is a relatively small sensor. It's a 1/1.7 inch sensor, which is very similar indeed. Where's it gone? I have so many cameras in this place, I keep losing them. It's very similar to the LX7, which is a camera I've been trying to get for ages, and I finally got one at a really good price. These two cameras are sort of two halves of a whole, with the LF1 being very good for zoom and the LX7 being better aperture and more sort of standard focal length, but perhaps higher quality photographs. So I'll do a little bit of a comparison between the two in a bit. But the sensor, despite being small, you can get some really good results with it dependent on the lighting that you're in. So the LF1 has a 28 to 200mm lens, and you can control it either using the rocker at the front or the dial at the lens itself if you want a more tactile experience. I use the latter, it's quite intuitive. And it has optical stabilization in the lens, which is great to keep things steady when you're zoomed in, and not too bad for video as well, though this isn't the first or even 20th camera I would pick for video. So the compromise that you have with this camera is because you have a lot of zoom, you sacrifice the aperture, but it's still f2 at the wide end, which is very usable and pretty generous. It falls off to 5.9 at the zoomed end, which is why we need good lighting, particularly with that smaller sensor when it comes to this camera. And it's why I sometimes would prefer the LX7 depending on my circumstances, because that has a much brighter lens but less zoom. That's sort of the decision you have with these two bargain cameras. Now, I love me a Lightroom alternative, and like a lot of people, I think we're all getting a bit blooming sick of paying monthly for things forever and ever and never owning anything. And Luminar, the kind sponsor of this week's video, is a great Lightroom alternative, one of the very best in my opinion. I've used Luminar for years personally. If you're used to Lightroom, a lot of the sliders will be very familiar to you. I personally love the Auto Effect slider, and you can even use this as a plugin for Lightroom if you don't want to make the switch entirely. I just love if you paste it over your highlights, you can make them bloom and have like a beautiful mist effect. And I think it's something that I use a lot. And there's a new 3-tier pricing system on their website, and all three are buy once and then you have it, which is wonderful, no monthly stuff. You even have access to the new fall update, which is just around the corner now, where they're bringing out loads of new stuff just on the horizon. So if you buy now, you'll get access to all of that as well. So check out Luminar in the description. I also have a cheeky discount code for you to use, and thank you to them. And let's get back to the nerdiness. I got my LF1 for around £200 used, which in an era of compact cameras just going through the roof price-wise, I think this is truly one of the few remaining bargains on the used market. It has full one-handed use if you use the zoom rocker for the lens, so you can turn it on the right, you can change the focal length on the right, and all your settings are on the right. And I find that particularly handy, especially when I'm in like a gig environment, so I can have one hand for photography and one hand for keeping me safe or holding a beer, more likely. And it does have an onboard flash as well, which I am coming around to the fact that I think that's becoming essential in an everyday carry camera. I think on-camera flash is becoming very trendy again on social media. It's like so many people have got used to what phone cameras can do, and then it's never going to look the same as an on-camera flash. It looks very striking, and some people younger than me would call it retro. So it's definitely coming back into fashion if that's something that you care about at all. I think it's a great option to have for an everyday carry. So when the light gets darker, you can turn on the flash and you can still get some really nice photos. I think particularly when the sensor is as small as this, it's very, very handy so you can still keep using the flash and the camera when the lighting gets darker. It's sort of one of a kind as well. An LF2 was long rumoured but didn't emerge, and it came out at the time when the 1/1.7 inch sensor in the premium compacts just kind of died a death through all brands, and everyone moved on to the 1-inch sensor. So the spiritual successor for this, I think, would be the TZ100, which has a very sort of long travel zoom but a larger 1-inch sensor. So I think this LF1 is very much in the spirit of take a camera out that isn't your phone and be more in the moment and enjoy yourself. And you can even do macro shots with it. It has a 3 centimeter minimal focus distance. So you can use it for macro. You have a zoom lens, you have an onboard flash. It's got a lot of good stuff going for it at a very attractive price. And the EVF. It's a little bit like looking at a postage stamp down a dark alley, but it's there. The fact that it's there at all is quite impressive if you ask me. And completely unnecessary, but I love when cameras do this, and cameras should bring this back, man. Start the petition with me. You can stamp your time and your date on the JPEGs. And the monochrome built-in is very nice as well. If you want JPEGs that are timed and dated and a bit retro looking, I think it's a great blooming option. But of course, the camera came out in 2013, there's going to be some negatives, right? First and foremost, I think quite obviously the battery life is going to be a bit pants. You've got the world's tiniest battery in this, and it's a very small camera as well. I did manage to get a full day at the festival out of it without charging it, but it might be worth either using it sparingly, turning it on and off in between shots, or just getting a few third-party batteries, which are still actually available on Amazon at the time of making this video. There is no touchscreen and the menus are quite basic, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. You don't really want to be lost in the menus in this kind of camera anyway. You still have your basic settings, so I use shutter speed priority most of the time with this, but you've got built-in panoramas, you've got aperture, you've got P, you've got intelligent auto if you just want to stick it on auto and not think about it, and it does do full manual settings as well, which I always think is really impressive. I think it's important if people are coming into photography from their phones, for example, that you do get a camera with manual settings. You don't need them day one, but maybe if you do enjoy photography, it will give you something to grow into. So I do love that there's manual controls on this. So there's a lot to love for a very cheap price. Just remember the limitations of the sensor size. If you're in good lighting, you're going to have the time of your life. If you're in bad lighting and can use a flash, you're going to have the time of your life. If you're expecting the Earth taking zoomed in gig photos with this, you're going to be disappointed. If you're shooting butterflies on a bright day, you're going to be fine. So pros and cons to the sensor size, just know what you're getting into. As always, limitations can be a bonus. Just remember what you can and can't shoot well with it, and you'll have a great time. So what if you're less bothered about the zoom and would prefer a more generous aperture? This is where its sister, the LX7, comes into play. And you can see straight away that the lens is a little bit bigger, and you can see that it's quite reminiscent of the LX100/L10 line of cameras, where you have your aspect ratio on the front, you have your macro on the back, and you do have your aperture ring as well, so it's a much more tactile experience. This one is a f1.4, which I think is brilliant for this size, and it's a Leica branded lens as well. I think it's really, really cool. It does pop out a bit more, but it's nothing that you can't deal with. What I really like about the LX7, you do find these slightly more expensive. I think this was around 250 used that I bought it for, but still, in the grand scheme of things, it's a bargain. A built-in ND filter. You've got a 3-stop ND filter, which you can just toggle on and off by using the button at the back. So I think it's really blooming cool. Oh, and double flash. So there's a bit of an upgrade there as well. So if you don't want the zoom, get the better lens, in my opinion. This is why I always recommend the LX15 over any of the travel zooms, because I'd rather have faster lens for better image quality over the zoom. But I do appreciate that some people really, really love zoom, in which case the LF1 is a great bargain option. In good light. Always in good light. So which would you choose? The LF1 or the LX7? Or is the sensor size a little bit too small for your needs? Let me know in the comments, and thank you so much for watching.